The sounds got louder. Abdelhalim realized they were gunshots, but he continued. Abruptly ending the holy words mid-sentence would show a lack of respect in the face of God, he thought. Then the bullets came crashing through the window of the mosque. They sprayed into bodies. People screamed, diving atop each other in jumbled piles. Abdelhalim saw his son but could not make it to where he lay. Further back, at the partition for women, Abdelhalim's wife was also pinned down by gunfire, shot in the arm. Bullets thudded into a friend next to her, killing the woman. In the land that had become his sanctuary, Abdelhalim suddenly feared he was about to watch his family be slaughtered. Police later named Brenton Tarrant, a 28-year-old Australian, as the alleged shooter in the massacre last Friday, which claimed 50 lives and left as many wounded. Tarrant posted online a screed espousing white supremacist ideology and hatred of immigrants, authorities say. So far charged with one murder, Tarrant was remanded to custody without a plea Saturday, and is due back in court next month, when police say he is likely to face more charges. The country's Prime Minister, Jacinda Ardern, described a very different New Zealand in an address after the carnage. "We represent diversity, kindness, compassion," she said, her voice at times cracking with emotion. "A home for those who share our values. Refuge for those who need it." Many victims in Christchurch had sought just that, leaving Somalia, Pakistan, Syria, or Afghanistan for a better life, often with little in their pockets. Abdelhalim spoke of the city as a dream made real. In Cairo, Abdelhalim said, he'd worked as a judge specializing in inheritance and tenancy cases. He lived in a well-heeled suburb, his parents a teacher and a government employee, his brother an officer in the Egyptian military. But he did not see the future he wanted for his 3 children in Egypt. Cairo had witnessed a president being assassinated by Islamic militants in 1981, and a string of bombs exploding in and around the city in 1993. So the family moved to Christchurch, and Abdelhalim took the only job he could find, as a clerk at Work and Income, the government agency for employment services and financial assistance. "I tried to study law, but found it was very hard to begin again," he said. Nevertheless, his children were going to good schools and his family moved into a small brick home, where he still lives, with roses in the well-trimmed yard. "A neighbor invited him over for tea," he said, "nearly every day. The family got to know the woman at the post office, a local shopkeeper, and just about everyone else." Far from the chaos of Cairo, Christchurch is a place where men in straw hats and vests take tourists down the placid waters of the Avon River. It is a city of parks with birds chirping and a streetcar clanking past Cathedral Square. Abdelhalim's life grew along with the city. He opened a restaurant, named for his old home, Cairo. He became active in the Muslim community, working as the Imam at a mosque called Al-Noor. He also helped start and agreed to be the Imam, the religious leader, of the Linwood Mosque as its doors opened early last year, though it was across the city from his house. The building, a former community center, sits amid signs for the Salvation Army, a pawn shop, the Super Liquor and the Value Martinique. Its presence was a marker of growth in the city's still small Muslim community. It was at another mosque, Al-Noor, that the gunman first began shooting. He shot at men, women and children as he emptied one clip of ammunition and then the next, circling back to shoot once more just to be sure he'd killed as many Muslims as possible. He took more than 40 lives there. The gunman then got into his car and drove to Linwood, where Abdelhalim, a man with a carefully cut white beard, was beginning to pray. In the back of the mosque, a 27-year-old man from Afghanistan named Ahmed Khan peeked out a window. The plump-faced Khan and his family had arrived in Christchurch 12 years earlier, leaving behind a nation torn by war. "Someone called help, and when I looked out the window, somebody was laying down, bleeding," he said. Khan's eyes flitted across the driveway and spotted a strange figure, a man wearing a helmet, standing in broad daylight with a rifle in his hands. The man squeezed the trigger, Khan said, and a bullet flew through the window. Khan recalls calling out, "There's someone with a gun." In the prayer area, where Abdelhalim had stood reciting holy words just moments before, people flung themselves on the ground in panic. Khan recalls cradling a man in his arms one moment and then, the next, "The gunman shot him when I was holding him, in the head. And he was dead." There was another Afghan in the room who rushed toward the door. In the gunfire that followed, 7 people were killed. Khan said the toll almost certainly would have been higher if the second Afghan, Abdul Aziz, a short, muscular man who runs a furniture shop, hadn't confronted the shooter. They'd survived, with one of his sons laid over a younger brother, protecting the smaller boy's body with his own. Abdelhalim's wife and son also made it out alive. Now, in the aftermath of 50 dead in his city, Abdelhalim is trying to keep his family and his people together. They are left to navigate an issue that has confronted communities around the world after mass shootings. How, in the midst of suffering and rage, does normalcy and the peace they once knew return, if at all? Abdelhalim made his way carefully through the crowd in a dark suit with light pinstripes. Everyone was asking, he said, "Can the peace of Christchurch come back?" The gunman's manifesto, released shortly before the attacks, said he was motivated to fight back against the invasion of immigration by non-whites. The actual number of Muslims in New Zealand is small, about 1% of the populace. At the 2013 census, the most recent figures available, the government reported a 28% rise in Muslims since 2006, along with jumps in Hindu and Sikh numbers. On Sunday morning, Abdelhalim opened his front door at 9, wearing board shorts, flip-flops and a worn collared shirt, instead of the suits he favors in public. He was exhausted. City authorities released a list of the dead past midnight at the Christchurch hospital. Abdelhalim was there to speak with the bereaved. He'd gotten home from the hospital at some time after 2 a.m. and had barely slept.